"What the hell is this? Dope on your knees, you piece of garbage!" Lieutenant Riker roared, smashing his baton onto the hood. Seconds after, his crew had quietly slipped a white bag into the trunk. But a heartbeat later, the black man straightened, gripped Riker's wrist, and flipped him effortlessly, dropping the seasoned cop in one clean motion that stunned the entire patrol unit. No one expected the suspect to be Marcus Hale, the FBI director in his early 50s, secretly investigating cops who planted drugs just to inflate arrest numbers. Why would any officer dare drag justice through the gutter on a quiet suburban street? Who gave him authority to turn a warrant into a personal hunt? And what happens when the so-called suspect turns the planted evidence back on them? Hit subscribe, drop your city in the comments, and let us know if justice reached your neighborhood today. Afternoon light fell pale across the upscale neighborhood. Clean sidewalks gleamed, trees stood in neat rows, and a soft breeze skimmed along the glass of expensive houses. Marcus Hale, long-serving FBI director, was making a surprise field review. He wanted to see with his own eyes the complaints that had flooded into his office for weeks. Recent reports showed a spike in brutality, especially officers targeting black residents. Arrests, beatings, even shootings, all stamped resisting arrest, and then quietly scrubbed from official records. Marcus felt rot spreading inside a system he'd once served with absolute faith. A black SUV cruised slowly through the block, its polished body throwing a wavering strip of sunlight along the asphalt. Inside, Marcus kept the radio off, staring out at the motionless street. The calm felt staged, like a movie set built on fear, not safety. Notifications crawled across the dashboard screen. 2 more confrontations downtown. Unidentified black male assaulted at a gas station. No charges, no explanation, just another incident buried in code. Marcus tilted his head back, eyes closing for a moment as he tried to choke down the anger climbing his chest. Not far away, 3 officers lingered in a white cruiser. Lieutenant Riker, tall, 40s, with a dead-eyed stare, held a phone to his ear. The voice on the other end was cold, clipped. "Increase arrests on black civilians. We need numbers, not excuses." Riker smirked, nodding at nothing. "Copy that. You want stats? I'll deliver stats." He ended the call, leaned back, exhaled smoke, and muttered, "Forget reasons. Give me bodies." Officer Brent, early 30s, leaned beside him, grinning. "So basically, nail the black folks. Easiest way to boost the board." Riker turned, a cruel smile stretching his mouth. "Exactly. I'll teach them badge respect." In the back seat, Officer Morales chuckled. "Just don't film from the wrong side, or we're toast." Riker narrowed his eyes, killed the radio, and stared toward the street's far end. A sleek black SUV had just turned into the neighborhood, unfamiliar plates catching the light. Riker's grin sharpened. "Perfect." Brent rested his elbow on the window, watching. "Luxury ride. Black guy. Tailored suit. Dealer or crooked politician?" Riker's lip curled. "Doesn't matter. I just need an excuse." He turned the key, tapped the siren once, and the cruiser rolled toward the SUV like predators circling a wounded animal. Marcus spotted the patrol car closing in through his rearview mirror. He sighed, shut off the engine, and lowered his window halfway, neither nervous nor submissive, just very, very aware. He'd worked with countless departments nationwide, but the look staring back at him through the mirror chilled him. Riker exited first, sun bouncing off the silver badge pinned to his chest. He stopped a few steps from the SUV, voice rough and commanding. "Smells like weed. Roll that window all the way down." Marcus tilted his head slightly, tone calm but razor-edged. "You trust your nose that much?" Riker's hand drifted toward his holster, brow lifting. "Got yourself an attitude." The air seemed to solidify. Brent walked toward the rear, glanced at Riker, then spoke. "Sir, if you're clean, Let us search the vehicle. Fair enough, Marcus answered, resting his hands on the wheel without moving his gaze from the mirror. I've got registration, insurance, everything in order. Which do you want first? Riker sneered. I want to see how long that mouth keeps going. He signaled Brent. Search it. I'm in the mood for some clean stats today. Marcus stayed motionless. He understood exactly what kind of game this was. In the slanting light, every shift of Riker's shoulders burned with hunger for dominance. Marcus watched Brent lean into the rear, pretending to check under seats while his other hand palmed a small bag of white powder. Brent turned away from the dash cam, smirking. Riker's eyes flashed with ugly satisfaction. Marcus inhaled, chest tight. The line between restraint and explosion thinned to a thread. He needed proof, not rage. Riker circled to the front, pounding on the hood. Out of the car! Hands on your head! His voice sliced through the neighborhood's quiet. Marcus remained seated. You have a warrant for this search, Lieutenant? Riker bent near the window, lip twisting. I am the warrant. From behind, Brent added, Looks clean, sir. Well, mostly. Riker walked to the trunk. Marcus saw the white bag glinting where Brent had just been. The air thickened. Even crickets seemed to fall silent. Riker straightened, voice dripping with fake certainty. Well, called it. That's enough to lock you away for years. Marcus met his stare without flinching. You just made a very serious mistake, Lieutenant. Riker chuckled. Only mistake was not stopping you sooner. He nodded, and Brent's hand settled on Marcus's shoulder. Step out. We'll discuss everything at the station, Brent said. Marcus opened the door and stepped out slowly. Sun warmed his face. The air smelled of dust and gasoline and something uglier. Riker eyed him from head to toe, malice in every glance. Funny seeing a black man dressed like a bank executive. Maybe you forgot where you belong, Marcus answered quietly. I belong to the law you're corrupting. The words made Riker's jaw tighten. Fists clench. You'll learn how to talk once you're in cuffs. Sweat rolled down Marcus's temple, but his gaze remained steady. Brent subtly flashed another packet of white powder. Riker caught the signal and smirked, giving a tiny nod. Marcus understood. Justice was being buried by the very hands sworn to uphold it. To fix it, he'd have to walk straight into the filth. Riker stepped forward, boots thudding on the pavement. Search everything. I want to be absolutely sure he deserves a cell. Brent let out a dry chuckle. Yes, sir. He bent down again, this time quickly palming another small bag from his pocket and tucking it into the back of the SUV. Marcus watched in the side mirror, breathing deeper, his eyes turning to ice. A storm churned inside him, half fury at the open abuse, half grief for the institution he'd dedicated his life to, now drilling holes in its own soul. Riker slammed the trunk shut and pivoted back toward Marcus, lips curled. Looks like today's our lucky day. Marcus didn't answer, just held his gaze. No shaking, no fear, only calculation. Riker turned to Brent, voice low and decisive. We're done. Write it up. I want this guy's name in tomorrow's headlines. Brent nodded, unease flickering behind his practiced smirk. Riker pulled another smaller bag from his pocket, the plastic glinting like ground glass in the light. A gentle breeze slid through, carrying sunlight, gasoline, and the foul stench of a looming miscarriage of justice. Marcus stood steady, eyes cutting through their performance. Their game had only started, and he knew he wouldn't stay quiet much longer. The neighborhood remained unnervingly calm, sidewalks reflecting the late-day sun. Wind whispered through the trees, leaves rustling in rhythm. Far off, a brief burst of siren wailed, then died, as if signaling something understood only by those involved. Marcus stood beside the SUV, looking past Riker to Brent, who drifted toward the rear door. A tight glove already covered Brent's hand, his movements slow, deliberate, well-practiced. Brent scanned the area, then leaned toward the back door, mumbling, Won't take long. Camera's off angle. Riker nodded, voice dropping. Good. Don't leave prints. He watched his partner work like it was routine. Marcus didn't turn, but the mirror showed everything. He watched Brent's gloved hand holding a milky, plastic-wrapped bundle, pressing it along the edge of the seat. "Think about this," Marcus said evenly. Voice low. No threats. No raised tone. Brent paused, faint smile returning as if nothing unusual was happening. "Save it. I'm just enforcing the law." Smoothly, he slid the packet deeper into the seat gap like he'd done it dozens of times. Marcus tilted his head, catching Brent's eyes in the reflection. No fear. Just that arrogant, dead calm. Riker pounded on the windshield. "Registration and insurance," he snapped, sounding like the law in human form. Marcus didn't move. "Which one first? Registration or insurance?" His voice dragged across the moment like concrete. Riker froze for a beat, then his face flushed. "What's with the attitude?" He smacked the hood, the sharp bang louder than birdsong and the distant hum of traffic. Brent opened the back door, scanned the interior, then crouched. "Car's clean," he called out, while his practiced hand nudged the hidden packet deeper into the corner. Riker gave a subtle, approving nod. "See anything?" Riker asked, half performative. Brent nodded. "Suspicious signs. Keep looking." Behind them, Morales remained silent, hand resting on his belt, expression unreadable, like he'd watched this dance far too often. Marcus quietly slipped his phone from his shirt pocket, opened the vehicle app, and remotely reset the dash cam angle. When Brent's hand withdrew, a faint click sounded. To anyone else, it was nothing. To Marcus, it was critical. The front camera now captured the hand pulling away, with the white packet still visible in the seat's corner. Riker stepped in close, planting himself in front of Marcus. "You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance," he declared, voice rock solid. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say—" "I know my rights, Lieutenant," Marcus cut in. Gaze unbroken, voice cold enough to freeze the air. Brent returned, nodding smugly. Morales glanced once at Marcus, then looked away, wanting no part of this. Riker keyed his radio. "Suspect confirmed, narcotics found. Logging arrest, requesting system entry." Static-laced replies crackled back, unintelligible, but his urgency showed. He wanted this processed before anyone could intervene. Marcus scanned the street. Sunlight shimmered across the road, dancing over the patrol car's glossy exterior. This moment would define everything. Fight back now, and they'd stack a resisting arrest charge. Or he could wait for the right opening and hit them with the one weapon they couldn't spin. Undeniable proof. Brent snapped the cuffs open. "You'll need to kneel," he said. Marcus stayed upright. "I'll comply," Marcus replied. "As long as you understand what it means to plant evidence." Riker cut in, temper flaring. "I'm done getting lectures from fancy, educated punks. Down on your knees." Marcus lowered himself, resting on his knees, eyes locked on Riker's stiff, angry face. Wind swirled dry leaves into a little cyclone in the middle of the street. Riker motioned for Brent to grab Marcus's shoulder. At that moment, Marcus's smartwatch chimed. Unseen, the dashcam had auto-uploaded the incriminating clip to his private cloud, sending a duplicate straight to headquarters. Riker crouched, his face inches away, taunting. "Thought you were smarter than this. Expensive car, big shot executive, hiding dope in the back seat. Pathetic." Marcus, lip bleeding slightly from a previous shove, answered calmly. "Nothing's more pathetic than a man hiding his fear behind violence." Riker stood and kicked the car door hard. "All right, haul him in. Another solid win for the day." Brent stepped forward, ready to clamp the cuffs. Just before he touched Marcus's wrist, a tiny alarm chirped on Marcus's watch. The vehicle system flashed an alert. "Suspicious activity, interior tampering recorded." Marcus turned his head, offering a faint, humorless smile. He'd just stacked the first brick in dismantling a rotten structure. At the far end of the block, a plain sedan rolled in quietly. A man in a grey suit stepped out, tablet in hand, scanning the scene with trained eyes Marcus recognized instantly. Marcus hadn't spotted him yet, but he knew the clock was ticking. Just a few more minutes, and everything would flip. No one could erase the footage of Brent's planted evidence now. A reckoning had begun in that honey-colored light. The men who believed they were the law had forgotten one thing: Truth always claws its way to the surface. Evening wind whipped through the line of houses, sweeping dry leaves around Riker's boots. He strode forward, badge flashing in the last rays of sun, and barked loud enough to rattle windows. "Out of the car! Hands on your head!" The command cracked through the air like a gunshot. Marcus stayed seated, gaze level, voice firm. "Do you have a warrant to search this vehicle?" Riker bent down, thin smile stretching across his face. "I am the warrant," he replied, like due process was just a joke he'd heard too many times. Brent stepped closer, hand resting dramatically on his holstered gun. The faint leather creak sent a chill down the block. "Out of the car," he repeated, tinged with excitement. Marcus opened the door. His foot touched pavement, sunlight stabbing his eyes. In that moment, he saw contempt in Riker's stare, appetite in Brent's, and hesitation ghosting across Morales' features. The air felt heavy. The only sound loud in Marcus's ears was his own heartbeat. "I request an explanation for this arrest," he stated, each word clear and measured. Riker ignored him, flicking a signal. Brent instantly grabbed Marcus's arm, wrenched him from the SUV, and drove him to his knees. "On your knees, trash!" The impact cracked through the quiet street. Marcus kept silent, hands laced behind his head, eyes fixed on the dull concrete. For several seconds, no one spoke, until a sudden punch smashed across his face. Blood spilled from his lip, metallic tang mixing with the hot plastic smell of sun-baked pavement. Riker watched, satisfaction glinting in his eyes. "Write it up. Resisting an officer." Morales' pen shook as he scribbled the false report. Marcus turned his head, voice soft but cutting. "You're making a grave mistake." Riker inhaled sharply and leaned close to his ear. "Mistake?" he hissed. "My mistake was ever letting people like you walk upright." He straightened and gestured. "Tie him down!" Brent shoved Marcus's shoulder. "Your first mistake was being born with that skin." The words sliced like ice. Marcus lifted his head, staring into Brent's hate-clouded face, seeing the decay of a man who believed power excused everything. He breathed, blood still trailing from his mouth, but stayed quiet. Riker kicked Marcus in the shoulder. "Look up!" Marcus raised his head, eyes eerily calm. "You've just put yourself on a federal investigation list." Riker laughed harshly. "Investigation list? Who the hell do you think you are?" He yanked Marcus up by the collar. "Around here, I'm the law. No feds are saving you." Brent lifted his phone, snapping photos. "Evidence," he said, crooked grin in place. Morales looked away, shadowed eyes refusing to meet Marcus's gaze. Marcus's hands trembled slightly from pain, but his eyes were razor-sharp. The radio crackled again. Riker's voice. "Suspect secured, narcotics verified, requesting backup transport and commendation review." The reply came clipped and cold, devoid of empathy, just like the men standing over Marcus. Riker dropped the radio, turning to his team with gleeful energy. "Good day, gentlemen. Solid collar, guaranteed bonus." "What do you call bonus points for a crime, Lieutenant?" Marcus asked, voice hoarse but eyes still bright with defiance. Riker paused, contempt gleaming. "I call it achievement." He yanked Marcus's collar again. "Stand up. I want a clean shot of your face." Marcus struggled upright, back straight, chin lifted. For a fleeting moment, both Riker and Brent felt strangely unsettled. The man in front of them didn't look like a broken suspect. He looked like a mirror reflecting their guilt. Riker reached to shove Marcus's head down, but Marcus stepped forward half a pace. "If I were you," Marcus said quietly, "I'd stop. Now." Brent laughed, trying to break the tension. "Stop for what? To hear your moral sermon?" Riker growled. "Cuff him." Brent locked the handcuffs around Marcus's wrists. The cold metal bit into his skin with a sharp click. Morales edged closer. "Boss, should we wait for HQ confirmation?" he asked quietly. Riker shot him a deadly glare. "No, just write exactly what I said." He eyed Marcus. "Too bad. You just torched your career." Marcus tilted his head, voice faint. "My career rests on the law. Yours rests on lies. Let's see which one outlives the other." Riker slammed him against the SUV, his head striking glass with a dull thud. Silence followed, broken only by Morales' pen scratching across the report. Wind kicked dust into the air, carrying the iron scent of Marcus's blood. He closed his eyes, inhaling, shoulder and jaw burning. In his mind he saw the dash cam icon pulsing, recording, like a tiny flame in suffocating darkness. He didn't need to argue. Every insult, every blow, every planted bag was preserved. Riker raised a hand. Brent stepped in, yanking Marcus's wallet free. "Let's see who this clown is." Brent flipped it open, sifting through cash, license, cards. A small metal object slipped free, clinking against the pavement. All three men looked down. Sunlight glinted off the engraved words. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Director. Morales froze, color draining from his face. Brent bent, picked it up with a shaky hand. Boss, this looks—" Riker snatched it away, his smirk gone. His eyes skimmed the inscription, narrowing. "Probably fake," he muttered, less certain now. Marcus lifted his head, gaze locking onto Riker's. "You just assaulted the FBI director," Marcus said, voice strained but clear. "And every second of it is on record." Riker's fingers clenched around the badge, veins bulging. He forced out a broken laugh. "The FBI director, driving a regular SUV. Cheap fake." Brent glanced between them, doubt slowly pushing aside his arrogance. Morales stepped back, nearly stumbling. A gust of wind scattered their fresh report pages. Riker's eyes darted around, something unhinged flickering within. He shouted, trying to drown out his own fear. "Take more photos. File him as a drug suspect. If that badge is real, I still don't care," he barked. "On this street, I decide the law." Marcus remained silent, still holding his gaze. In that look, Riker suddenly saw himself reflected in a mirror only guilt could polish. Panic twisted with rage. He kicked Marcus in the leg. Marcus collapsed, breath ragged. Riker turned away, slipping the badge into his pocket, like hiding a loaded secret. But in his head, distant sirens were already howling, warning that his flawless bust had become his trap. The badge rolled from Marcus's wallet earlier, spun once, then lay still on concrete, the engraved letters glowing like a blade in the light. Morales was first to fully register the inscription. "Lieutenant, this might be legit," he stammered. Riker stepped forward, snatched the badge from Brent again, glancing at it before snorting. "Cheap knockoff," he said, though his hand trembled at the edges. Brent swallowed hard, saying nothing, eyes shifting between Marcus and Riker, doubt carved into his features. Marcus raised his head, voice low but sharp. "You just put your hands on the real director of the FBI." The moment thickened, time stretching. Morales stood frozen. Brent glanced sideways at Riker, waiting for a reaction. Riker forced a brittle laugh and jammed the badge into his shirt pocket like tossing away trash. "Director my ass," he scoffed. "Around here I'm the law. His tone had a new edge, defensive, bordering on desperate. He stared at Marcus, trying to crush that unshaken calm. "Get his picture," Riker ordered. "I want his face in the system fast." Brent hesitated, then lifted his phone. Flash after flash captured Marcus, bloodied, cuffed, yet standing tall with steel-cold eyes. Marcus looked straight into the camera. "Everything you're doing is being recorded," he said quietly, each word clear as glass. Riker squinted, stepping closer, voice dropping. "Good. Let them see how cops deal with arrogant punks," he hissed. Brent stepped back half a step. Morales stared at Riker's pocket, where the badge weighed heavier than lead. A breeze drifted down the street, carrying gasoline fumes and hot air off the asphalt. Marcus didn't move. He watched Riker like a man who already knew the ending. Riker's fist slammed into Marcus's chest, hammering him against the car door. The impact echoed. Marcus gasped, chest burning, but his stare stayed fixed. "Write it up," Riker exhaled, resisting arrest. Morales' handwriting turned uneven. Brent pocketed his phone quietly, avoiding everyone's gaze, especially Marcus's. Marcus bowed his head, voice rough. "I don't need you to believe me. When the truth comes out, you'll be standing before a disciplinary board." "I'll never see one," Riker barked with a laugh. You think I haven't heard that fantasy before? Everyone thinks they're the hero of their story. Morales hesitated. Lieutenant, what if he really is? Enough, Riker snapped. I said right, so right. He jerked his chin at Brent. Get him in the car. Marcus was dragged toward the patrol vehicle, step by step. His eyes skimmed across shuttered windows and Morales's pale, shaken face. His chest throbbed sharply, but he said nothing. Not yet. They reached the cruiser. Brent shoved Marcus into the back seat. Riker spoke into his phone as he walked. Narcotics suspect detained. En route to station. Report filed. Requesting commendation. An ambulance siren wailed closer, slicing through the neighborhood noise. Riker turned, annoyance in his eyes. Who called them? He muttered. Morales stayed quiet. Brent looked down the road. 3 more vehicles followed the ambulance, none of them local patrol units. Riker's grip tightened on his phone. Panic flickered. He pulled the badge from his pocket and checked it again. He tried to convince himself it was fake, but the cold shine of the metal forced his mouth into a thin, grim line. Ahead, the ambulance stopped. A man in a grey suit, mid-50s, stepped out carrying a briefcase. Riker exhaled hard and shoved the cruiser door open, forcing his face into neutrality as he got out. Inside the car, Marcus closed his eyes, inhaling slowly. His ribs ached, his jaw throbbed, but his resolve didn't budge. In minutes, Riker's performance would collapse. The badge burning in Riker's pocket would become the blade severing his untenable career. The ambulance sirens still whined, red lights flashing off glass towers. The air stretched thin, like a cable about to snap. Riker stood in front of the cruiser, hands on his hips, trying to look unfazed as the ambulance doors flew open. Paramedics rushed out, followed by the man in grey. The city's police chief, Lawson, barely set foot on the pavement before shouting, "What the hell did you just do?" His voice ripped through the block, erasing whatever swagger Riker had left. Morales jerked upright. Brent whipped his head around. Riker froze, face turning to stone. "You know him?" Riker asked weakly. Lawson didn't answer immediately. He shoved past a medic checking Marcus and leaned over the bloodied, dust-covered man. "That's Marcus Hale," he growled. "Director of the FBI." The sentence hit like an explosion. Everyone stopped. Brent stared, then looked back at Lawson. "No way. He's bluffing." Lawson spun and slapped Riker so hard the sound cracked the air. "Shut up!" Lawson snapped. "The whole city's about to erupt. You just turned a routine patrol into a national crisis." Riker staggered, clutching his cheek, eyes unfocused. Marcus was lifted onto a stretcher, face streaked with blood, eyes never leaving Riker. There was no rage, no plea, just a cold warning that tightened Riker's throat. Sweat soaked Riker's back. Watching Marcus being loaded into the ambulance, he muttered, "If he lives, we're finished." Brent heard him and nodded slowly. "Then don't let him live!" There was no joke in Brent's voice anymore. His eyes no longer resembled those of a cop, but of a man who'd already crossed every line. Lawson stood in the street, barking orders at the medics. "Get him to the high-security wing. No one touches him without my signed authorization." His shoes hammered the pavement as he turned on Riker. "How long you been playing this game? 6 years? 8? And you still didn't recognize Marcus Hale?" Riker bit his lip, blood seeping from Lawson's slap. He had no badge showing," Riker stammered. "Looked like some imposter." Lawson's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Then why'd you beat him? Why fake a drug charge? You got footage showing him holding anything?" Brent jumped in. "Chief, everything happened fast. We followed standard procedure." Lawson glared. "Standard procedure doesn't land a man on a stretcher like that." Morales stared at the ground, silent. Riker threw a quick look at Brent. Something passed between them. Brent stepped back, pulled out his phone, and slipped behind the ambulance, out of sight. He typed quickly. "Is it done? Need cleanup at hospital tonight." His thumb hovered, then hit send. The phone buzzed. "Message sent" appeared briefly. Brent pocketed it, returning with a blank expression. Riker watched the ambulance speed away. The badge in his pocket felt like it was scorching through his shirt. He knew this wasn't over. Marcus's echo lingered in his mind. "You just put your hands on the director." Lawson pulled out his own phone, pacing away. Initiate emergency protocol, Lawson ordered. Special protection unit on Hale, and I want every file on 6th District Patrol on my desk in 1 hour. Riker stood rooted, gripping his holster strap, eyes fixed somewhere far ahead. He wasn't analyzing anymore. All he could picture was Marcus on that stretcher, those glacial eyes locked on him. Brent stepped close, whispering, "If he survives and talks, we're done." Riker's hands shook, but he said nothing. A strong gust sent loose incident reports skittering across the asphalt. Everything they'd staged began drifting away like blown paper, while the men who'd crossed the line stood frozen in a fear no one dared to name. The ambulance tore toward Central Hospital, carrying the one man this city had just made the colossal mistake of attacking. Sirens screamed above the warehouse district later, red and blue cutting the smoky air. Armed units ringed the industrial blocks, weapons drawn. Inside, fire and smoke wrapped around steel beams like a suffocating fog. Marcus crouched behind a collapsed frame, shirt soaked with blood from a fresh wound. He'd dragged Riker out of the burning central hall when bullets started flying. The wind fed the flames, sending waves of heat and thick white smoke across the gutted interior. Over a loudspeaker, a hoarse voice, the deputy chief running the operation, boomed, "Director or criminal? Today you die. There's no walking out." Marcus pressed his radio button. "I'm the only thing standing between you and federal court," Marcus replied, voice low but unwavering. "Step back and let me walk out." Silence, then a dry laugh crackled over the channel. "Court! Out here! Whoever holds the gun is the law." The deputy sneered. Gunfire erupted, bullets ripping through corrugated metal, ricocheting off drums and shattering crates. Marcus flattened himself, pulling a bleeding, shaken Riker into deeper shadows. A round grazed a fuel tank, sparking a flare that lit Marcus's hardened features through the smoke. Shadowy figures moved outside, backlit by patrol lights, cold and deliberate. Riker groaned, clutching his side where a bullet had torn skin. Marcus ripped his shirt, tying a makeshift bandage tight. Smoke and blood mingled in the air. "Hold on," Marcus said through gritted teeth. "I'm not leaving anyone behind." Riker grabbed his wrist, eyes suddenly clear with something like conscience. "I've killed people," Riker whispered. "I don't deserve saving." Marcus met his gaze, steady in the chaos. "But you can save thousands. If you die, every scrap of evidence dies with you." Riker's breath hitched. "They'll never let you live. Even if you walk out, they'll wipe everything." Marcus shook his head. "Not if I get what you're carrying. Out of here." Another burst of fire rocked the warehouse. A team breached a side door, rounds shredding wood and steel. Flames spread to ammunition crates, popping small explosions that grew into rolling blasts. Marcus dragged Riker toward a steel door labeled Technical Room. He shouldered it open, and they slipped inside. The cramped space reeked of burnt wiring and melted insulation. Firelight pulsed red across the walls. Marcus set Riker down, checking his side again, hands trembling from fatigue and blood loss, though his expression stayed focused. "Anything you still haven't told me?" Riker stared at him, breath weakening. "The drive," he said. "I brought it." Outside, the loudspeaker crackled again. "Marcus Hale, you betrayed the organization. Drop your weapon and come out." Marcus laughed hoarsely. "Organization? That's just your word for a criminal ring in uniform." He turned back. "We're not dying here, Riker. Not today." Riker nodded faintly, fumbling in his jacket. He pulled out a small object wrapped in blood-streaked tape. "It's all on this," he whispered. Marcus saw the grimy USB glint. "Everything," Riker rasped. "Orders to round up black civilians, transfer sheets, files from Lawson's vault. I copied it all." Another explosion rattled the ceiling, dust raining down. Lights flickered and died. Marcus grabbed Riker's collar. "Stay with me. There's a north exit." Riker shook his head, giving a faint, tired smile. "There's no US anymore, Marcus. Only you." Before Marcus could argue, Riker pressed the USB into his palm and squeezed. "Finish it! Don't let people like me die for nothing!" His eyes were unnervingly calm. Riker shoved Marcus away and staggered upright. "Riker, don't!" Marcus shouted, but it was already too late. Riker charged out with a pistol in one hand and a detonator in the other. His footsteps pounded through the smoke. Gunfire rang out, his silhouette swallowed by flame. A blinding white blast followed. The explosion ripped through the structure, hurling debris and fire. Marcus slammed into a wall, ears ringing, skin seared by waves of heat. Where Riker had stood, only roaring fire remained. Marcus clenched the USB in his bloody grip and crawled toward the doorway. Outside, police still ringed the complex, boots echoing on concrete. Marcus rose slowly, eyes burning with reflected flames. Riker's death had carved him a path, and it would not be wasted. Later, in a hardened federal office, alarms had stopped and screens glowed blue. A security advisor reported someone erased the original dataset in 3 minutes using root-level access. Only the sheriff's office matched those privileges. Harry, now Sheriff Lawson, stood smirking in the doorway, taunting that a few missing files wouldn't topple the machine. Marcus stared him down. "I don't need code," he said. "I have people ready to talk." Cole, no longer just a dirty lieutenant but a terrified witness, sat across from him, cuffs on, eyes locked on the darkened monitor. A faint tremor ran through him as he finally grasped how far the truth was spreading beyond that room. "They're already here," Riker whispered, eyes fixed on the feed. "Told you. They're everywhere." The monitor flared once, then died, plunging the room into humming, server-lit darkness. For a few long seconds, only the low whir of processors filled the air. Marcus inhaled, steadying himself, then ordered, "All security down to lower levels. Seal every exit, nobody leaves." Lawson gave a thin, mocking chuckle, his words drifting like a taunt. "Good luck, Director. You're chasing a monster you helped build." Marcus ignored him, staring at the blank screen. Moments ago it had shown Riker and Brent in custody. Now only darkness stared back. Marcus understood this wasn't simple corruption anymore. It was a hidden structure rewriting reality to survive. Red emergency lights snapped on overhead, bathing the office in blood-colored glow. A security lieutenant burst in, panting. "Sir, our storage servers just got mirrored to the open net. Whole personnel database went out, not just warrants." He gasped. "Everyone's files." Marcus scanned their faces, voice turning to tempered steel. "Someone just purchased the truth, and we let them pay in full." Night pressed heavy over the city, drizzle smearing streetlights into hazy streaks. In an alley behind the federal jail, a grey box truck idled, almost invisible against the wet concrete. Its rear doors swung open. 2 hooded prisoners were shoved inside, manhandled onto the metal floor. The engine revved, tires scraping, and the truck rolled away unnoticed from the supposedly secure perimeter. In the dim compartment, Riker ripped off his hood, shouting, "You promised protection! What the hell is this?" The driver never turned. His voice stayed steady, almost bored. "Relax. Lawson's arranged everything. My job's just transport. Get you both someplace safe." Riker's eyes widened. He looked at Brent, who was equally rattled. Brent forced a brittle laugh, wiping sweat away. "Safe?" Brent scoffed. "He's about to be exposed on national livestream. Only an idiot would keep trusting him. This whole machine's collapsing. How long you think he lasts?" Riker stayed silent, fingers tightening around the hidden pistol strapped near his ankle. Across town, Marcus stood in the monitoring center, watching a red tracker dot slide slowly south on the map. He leaned closer, voice low. Southern tunnel, only one escape route that direction. His breathing was measured, metallic. The advisor beside him whispered, "Call in the rapid response squad?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I finished this myself." The truck finally stopped inside an abandoned industrial yard. Rust-streaked warehouses loomed, windows shattered like broken teeth, wind whining through jagged glass. The driver opened the rear, gesturing. "Out! Wait inside! Someone's coming!" Then he climbed back into the cab and disappeared into the dark, engine growling faintly away. Riker and Brent traded wary looks. "Something's off," Brent murmured. "No escort, nobody watching." Riker's jaw locked. He pulled his gun free, sweeping the shadows like a cornered animal. Meanwhile, Marcus approached with a tactical convoy. Black SUVs screamed down the highway, their flashing bars casting jagged light across the ruined brick. Over comms, the lead agent reported, "Perimeter locked, no exits." "Hold positions," Marcus replied. "I talked to him first." The wind carried the sour tang of old oil and wet concrete. Inside the warehouse, metal groaned as something shifted. A lone figure stepped from behind stacked pallets. Riker, gun raised, eyes wild but trying to look composed. "One more step and somebody dies!" he shouted, his voice echoing off corrugated walls. Outside, a megaphone clicked. Marcus's voice rolled in, steady as granite. "Put the gun down, Riker. Don't dig the grave deeper." Riker laughed bitterly, sound bouncing around the empty space. "Dig? I've been buried since my first quota order. I'm just a piece on the board. The Kings are still in City Hall toasting justice." Marcus eased inside, his flashlight beam gliding over crates and rusted rails. "You weren't always like this," he said quietly. "You were a decent cop once. Don't let them make you their scapegoat." Riker's finger tightened on the trigger. "A good cop," he repeated, almost mocking. "I believe that too. Then I got arrested for following the same orders they signed. They buy their version of truth," he snarled. "You think you're different?" Rain began to patter on the tin roof, building a slow, tense rhythm overhead. Outside, tactical teams crept into position. A whisper crackled through Marcus's earpiece. "We've detected a motion-triggered charge in the basement, likely set to erase evidence." Marcus's pulse jumped. "Hold your fire," he ordered. "No one pulls a trigger." He stepped closer to Riker, voice firm but controlled. "Listen to me. They're never coming for you. You're expendable." Riker retreated toward a stairwell leading down, eyes glinting with feverish resolve. "I already escaped, Director," he answered. "Escaped the fairy tale that justice actually exists." He grabbed Brent's sleeve. "We're done," he growled. "Move." Marcus lunged forward. "Riker, don't!" The heavy basement door slammed, metal ringing like a vault ceiling shut. Below, the air reeked of gasoline and chemical dust. Red LEDs blinked across stacked canisters. Brent trembled as light flickered over his pale face. "What are you doing?" he stammered. Riker scanned the explosives with a hollow smile. "I've got nothing left to bargain with." He yanked a detonator pin free. "If I go, they live with the same fear I did." Brent screamed, lunging for his hand. Above, Marcus and the tactical unit heard the muffled shouts echoing up. "Fall back!" Marcus roared. "Everybody move!" A thunderous blast tore through the floor. Fire belched up the stairwell, painting the walls orange. Glass shattered, smoke and dust engulfing the entrance in a violent wave. As the smoke thinned, Marcus forced his way down, flashlight cutting through the haze. Half the staircase had collapsed. He crouched at the edge, peering into the ruined lower level. Embers glowed across the concrete, scorch marks spidering outward. Amid the rubble, a single broken handcuff glimmered red-hot in the ashes. Marcus stared at it for a long, heavy moment. No one spoke. Wind whistled through shattered window frames, carrying the acrid scent of burned fuel. An agent approached quietly. "No bodies, sir." Marcus's eyes hardened. "No bodies means they're still in play," he said softly. "This isn't finished." The scene closed on that lone handcuff. Steel and warning, proof that Power's prisoners rarely stay buried. Dawn came draped in grey rain. National networks replayed grainy footage of the detention facility blast on loop. A red banner crawled beneath, "Key witness in abuse scandal dies mysteriously." In the FBI briefing room, the glow from wall screens turned every face ghost pale. A duty officer, hands shaking, clutched a fresh report. His voice wobbled. "Sir, corridor cameras went offline for exactly 17 minutes. Same window when all feeds from their cell cut out." Marcus looked up from the case file, eyes darkening. 17 minutes, he repeated. The same 17 minutes Riker and Brent disappeared from inmate tracking. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. His chief advisor asked quietly, "You think they're alive?" "I think someone wants me convinced they're dead," Marcus replied, his tone frosted. He turned the big screen to face the room. Grainy footage of a truck leaving a rear service gate. The plate was smeared, unreadable, but the reflective insignia stamped on the container matched internal police transport. Agents exchanged looks, nobody daring to speak first. Marcus rose, voice dropping to a deadly calm. They're eliminating anyone who knows the truth, and they're doing it inside our own house. That afternoon, the media detonated. Major outlets blasted the same line. FBI Director manipulated case to sway public opinion. Clips of Marcus's hearing testimony were spliced, twisted, played on repeat. Public opinion cracked in two. Some argued he was being framed by the system he exposed. Others said he'd orchestrated everything. Outside FBI headquarters, protest lines clashed. Justice for Hale banners facing "Lawson tells the truth" placards. The air turned suffocating, as if the entire country had been pulled into a rigged chess game. That evening, Lawson appeared on national television in a flawless dark suit. He sat comfortably under studio lights, voice controlled. My fellow citizens, we're watching our institutions ripped apart by suspicion. This is when we must restore order, not ignite chaos, he said smoothly. The cameras softened his weathered features, but his eyes glittered with something colder. In his office, Marcus watched, coffee long cold in his hand. Order. Or cover up, Lawson, he muttered, barely above a hiss, though everyone in the room heard every syllable. A young staffer whispered, "He's challenging you in public." Marcus set the cup down, voice unwavering. "Then I answer him in public." A press conference was rushed together. Floodlights, flags, rows of microphones, all waiting when he stepped up. He ignored the prepared remarks. Looking straight into the cameras, he said, "Some people are trying to bend truth into a weapon to show that justice is just another commodity. But when truth is bought," he continued, "it burns itself free eventually. I won't stop until that flame is visible to everyone." Microphones thrust forward like spears. "Are you accusing Chief Lawson personally?" someone shouted. Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm accusing anyone who twists justice," he answered. "If that includes him, then yes." The conference slammed into social media like a shockwave. International outlets called it open war between federal investigators and internal police power. That same night, Lawson countered with a private interview. Reclining slightly, he told the camera, "Director Hale forgets that a nation needs order more than truth. I'm prepared to enforce both, however necessary." The clip became next morning's headline. Marcus watched the replay, exhaustion etched into his features. His advisor laid a folder on his desk. "Classified tip, sir. Source says someone inside is editing our data systems." Marcus sighed, the sound heavy. "We're not fighting criminals now," he said. "We're fighting people who wear the same badge." That night, rain hammered the windows of his office. Streetlights threw fractured shadows over piles of files. His phone vibrated softly. An unknown number. He opened the message, reading each word twice. "I'm alive. Meet at Old Armory." His whole world paused on that line. If it was truly Riker, the explosion had been theater, and someone above Lawson was pulling strings. Marcus grabbed his coat, eyes sharpening. "Bring the car around," he told his aide. "We're leaving. Now!" Thunder rolled in the distance as he stepped into the hallway. Outside, the sedan's headlights glowed on rain-pocked asphalt. Wind whipped the edge of his coat as he looked south, toward the derelict armory district where ghosts refused to stay dead. He parked short of the warehouse, beams cutting through low fog. Under the rusted roof, the doorway gaped like a dark throat. The air smelled of old oil and metal. The corrugated door hung crooked, revealing rows of wooden crates stacked high, each stamped with markings of illicit cargo. Marcus tightened his coat and stepped inside with his team. Their bootsteps echoed hollowly over concrete. In the darkness, a voice emerged, hoarse, tired. "I used to think I was defending the law. Now I don't know what it is." Riker stood among crates of weapons, clutching his side. Sweat streaked his face, soot smudged across his features. A flashlight beam slid over him, exposing raw confusion in his eyes. Marcus approached, voice cool and cutting. "So which is the law now? The one confessing, or the one still killing to hide the truth?" No theatrics, only brutal options. Riker's lips trembled. Finally he exhaled. You don't get it. They paid me to keep quiet. The confession fell like iron. Marcus studied him, peeling back each layer. Who's they? He asked. Riker stared at a crushed water bottle in his hand, voice cracking. The ones funneling guns to domestic radicals. The people making money off tension. Our job was to protect their supply line. Marcus walked past an open crate. Ammo boxes, stripped rifles, crude components. This wasn't stray contraband. It was infrastructure built to ignite conflicts. And Lawson opened the door for them, Marcus stated. Riker's shoulders sagged, tears finally spilling. He wasn't alone. Politicians, too. They sold zone lists, demanded tougher stats, then disappeared. Agents froze, stunned. Marcus nodded slowly, eyes swallowing every detail. Then we drag them all into daylight. I want names, dates, money trails, locations, everything. Riker looked at him like a drowning man eyeing a distant shore. If I talk, my family's dead. They don't leave loose ends. Marcus's tone softened but stayed firm. You saved innocent lives once, he reminded him. Today you can save thousands. Put it on the record. Riker's gaze flicked over the crates, as if the walls were listening. Finally, he muttered, There's a shadow funding route through charity fronts. Money in, cards out, under cover of goodwill campaigns. Marcus gestured to an agent. Every word. Write it. Riker swallowed. Last meeting was at the Royal Summit Hotel. 3 supplier reps, 1 local politician. They discussed opening a test zone up north. Marcus's eyes hardened. Name? He asked. Riker drew a long breath. Ellis Maxwell. Finance Commissioner. Signs welfare projects by day. Launders blood money by night. Marcus stayed composed, knowing proof would be crucial. We'll need documented transfers, final payees, everything, he said. Riker shut his eyes. There's a backup drive. I encrypted transaction logs on my phone and hid the location. Guarantee my family's protection and it's yours. Marcus met his stare. I will, but you stay cooperative. Every shipment, every recipient, every face in that room. An agent whispered, We've got bloodstains on multiple crates. Looks like something went bad here recently. Marcus nodded toward the open boxes. Good. That's our physical link to trafficking charges. Riker fished out a crumpled scrap, coordinates and a number scrawled in haste. Marcus scanned it, passing it to forensics. Priority transmission. Loop in financial crimes immediately. Riker's voice shook. They don't just sell guns. They fund sniper crews. Stage chaos. Then cash in when cities beg for more security. Marcus spotted counterfeit banners and fake protest gear. Corruption, fear, commerce, all in one tight knot. When did you sign on? Marcus asked. Riker stared into nothing. When quotas got unreal, they paid us, shielded us, then reminded us who really owned us. Marcus shut his eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed fire. We start here. I relocate your family, move you to a secure site. Then you testify live, under lights. When that truth hits the air, they'll have nowhere left to vanish. Riker half laughed, half sobbed. If I live to see them stripped naked in court, maybe that'll be enough. Silence settled. Wind scraped through the metal gaps, casting shifting shadows. Marcus ordered the team to catalogue and seal crates while a hidden camera began recording Riker's statement. Every movement felt like the opening sprint of a much larger hunt. From deep in the warehouse, a single footstep rang out, crisp. Flashlights snapped up, beams converging. Behind a row of crates, Brent appeared, M4 leveled, muzzle aimed at Marcus and Riker both. He stepped into the light, voice flat. No, Director, no one walks away. Whatever confusion he'd carried before was gone, replaced by a cold finality. Nobody moved. For a heartbeat, only the thrum of the storm outside dared to speak. Then the armory fell silent, right before the gunfire. Everything held its breath for the coming storm. Marcus's fists clenched, eyes locked on Brent, mind adjusting to survival mode. The old armory glowed under a single hanging lamp. Wind screamed through roof cracks, carrying burnt steel scent. Marcus stood between crates. Riker trembled nearby, clutching his gun. Brent advanced, M4 ready. Each step echoed like a ticking timer. "Deputy Chief promised me 2 million if I kill you," he shouted, his words half confession, half curse. Marcus met his stare, cold as ice. 2 million for your soul, huh? He asked quietly. Riker stepped forward, lifting a hand. "You moron. Killing him kills our proof. If he dies, nobody hears what we know." Brent's grin twisted. Sweat slicked his face. "The truth? You're both disposable. I'm just doing what it takes to keep breathing." He pulled the trigger. The first shot screamed past, sparking off a steel crate. Marcus dove behind a rack as gunfire erupted, echoing like thunder inside the steel shell. A bullet slashed across Riker's shoulder, dropping him with a strangled groan. Marcus leaned out, firing back. Short, precise bursts. One round smashed into Brent's leg, spinning him to the floor. Muzzle flashes threw jagged light across Marcus's face. Focused, relentless. "You both chose the wrong side," he rasped between breaths. Brent dragged himself behind a drum, still aiming. "Wrong side?" Brent gasped. "You're same as me. We both kill to survive." He fired again. The shot ricocheted into a fuel canister, metal chiming. A flash, then roaring flame. Fire leapt to life, racing across the concrete, licking up walls. The inferno painted their faces in hellish reds and oranges. Marcus coughed, shielding his face. He hauled Riker toward a darker corner. "Up!" he yelled. Riker's hands shook, eyes darting to Brent, who still struggled upright. "Thought we were different," Riker panted. "Turns out we're all pieces in their game." Marcus steadied him. "Difference is how we choose to end our roles." Brent fired again. The round slammed into the wall above, showering them with razor-edged shrapnel. A shard sliced Marcus's cheek. He twisted, shooting back. His bullet punched into Brent's shoulder, flinging him sideways. Smoke thickened. Flames crawled along the ceiling. Brent tried to crawl, voice torn. "Lawson! Used us!" he choked, then went still. Marcus checked his pulse, then turned to Riker. "He chose his exit," he said quietly. Riker's breath shuddered. "I don't want to die like garbage in here." Marcus gripped his shoulder. "Then don't live and testify. You owe that to everyone this system buried." Riker blinked, tears mixing with smoke. "Harry, Lawson keeps original quotas in his office safe." Riker coughed. "Arrest lists for black neighborhoods. He uses them as bargaining chips." Marcus nodded once. "Then we take them." He pulled Riker up, guiding him through burning aisles. The heat warped the air. Another explosion hurled steel fragments outward. Marcus shielded Riker as debris clattered. The armory burned like a furnace. "Move!" Marcus shouted. They pushed toward the exit, only to be blinded by sudden floodlights outside, blue and red cutting the smoke. "Surround the compound, no survivors!" a loudspeaker boomed. Marcus turned. Dozens of rifles glinted through haze. Riker's face drained of color. "They got here too fast," he whispered. "This is a setup." Marcus raised his radio. "Hold fire," he called. "We're pinned. Who's in command out there?" The reply came cold and familiar. "I am. There will be no second chances." Marcus froze. Lawson. Wet pavement shone beneath spinning lights, guns trained on them from every angle. Wind carried the bitter mix of smoke and gunpowder. Marcus tightened his grip on Riker, who was barely conscious now. "They want us to die right here," he murmured. Riker nodded weakly. "If I don't make it, tell them I confessed." Marcus's eyes burned. "You'll live. This isn't where we end." The loudspeaker barked, harsher. "Surrender or be erased." Marcus glanced back at the flaming warehouse. Fire danced in his eyes. His only answer was the metallic snap of his slide chambering around, a cold sound cutting across sirens and wind. Flashlights advanced, figures flooding the broken yard like waves. Through smoke and embers, Marcus stood between two worlds. Life and death, justice and collapse, gun raised, refusing to kneel. Hours later, sirens still haunted the warehouse district. Smoldering roofs glowed beneath pulsing lights. Inside, heat and silence replaced chaos. Marcus crouched behind warped steel, body smeared with ash. His back wound burned with every breath, a reminder of dragging Riker from another inferno. White smoke curled through gaps, turning the wreckage into a ghostly battlefield. Outside, Deputy Chief Carver's voice rasped over loudspeaker, dripping contempt. "Director or criminal? Doesn't matter. You die tonight." His hatred wasn't just for Marcus, but for anyone daring to resist. Marcus keyed his radio, fingers shaking. "I'm the only chance you have of dodging federal court," he replied. "Stand down and let me walk." A pause, then cruel laughter. "What courtroom ever convicted money? Out here, whoever holds the gun writes the rule book." Gunfire shredded metal, sparks raining down like stars from hell. Marcus shoved Riker deeper into shadow, shielding him from the exposed angle. A bullet grazed a fuel tank, flare lighting Marcus's set jaw and burning eyes. Outside, silhouettes moved slowly through searchlight beams, more like specters than officers. Inside, Cole, Riker, groaned, bleeding. Marcus tore more fabric, wrapping the wound. "I'm not leaving you," he muttered. Riker clutched his wrist. "I've killed men with families," he whispered. "I don't deserve saving." Marcus's stare didn't waver. "Then start deserving it, by bringing down the ones who paid you." Another surge of bullets, another blast, another scramble through smoke. Eventually Marcus found the tech room, grabbed Riker's drive, and escaped through a northern gap as the structure collapsed behind them. That night, back at headquarters, the lead data engineer cracked the USB open. Encrypted directories unfolded, revealing carefully hidden chains, warrant quotas, offshore accounts, Lawson's authentication on nearly everything. The engineer's voice shook. "Director, this isn't just local. This touches half the system." Marcus just whispered, "I don't need to topple the country. I need to restore justice." By sunrise, headlines screamed, "Leaked files reveal federal bribery, racial targeting." Clips of Marcus's fiery speech replayed beside spreadsheets of damning transactions. Streets filled with marches, chants, demands. Marcus's phone buzzed. Lawson's name flashed. "Release that and the whole machine collapses." Lawson rasped. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Then it collapses." A ragged laugh answered. "You think the Bureau's clean?" Lawson asked. "You think you're pure?" Marcus clenched the phone. "No, but at least I'm trying to clean it." Lawson scoffed. "You'll regret this. When the system falls, it crushes everyone. You, me, and the people you swear you're protecting." Marcus answered, steady. "No one's innocent if they stay quiet." Silence, then Lawson's whisper, "If I die, they all go with me." The call dropped. Marcus knew that wasn't a threat. It was a contingency plan already written. Forensics confirmed the files were genuine and untouched. The drive linked politicians, shell companies, an entity called the Reform Initiative Trust, a polished name covering organized instability. That night, storm clouds debated the city. In his office, Marcus connected the drive to a secured laptop, punched in clearance codes, and bypassed Congress's mainframe safeguards. A red warning flashed. "Action constitutes high-level breach. Criminal liability likely." Marcus typed 3 words. "I accept responsibility." He hit enter. Hundreds of files surged into the legislative archive. When the upload bar hit full, Marcus leaned back. This wasn't about chain of command anymore. It was about conscience. Somewhere in the building, a clock chimed. Hours later, a paper dropped on his desk. "Police Chief Lawson missing after emergency call." Marcus read it once, then headed for Lawson's office, dread already coiled. The door stood partially open, hallway lights too bright. The smell hit first, burnt propellant, metallic blood. Inside, Lawson slumped in his chair, crimson spreading across his shirt. A pistol rested on the desk beside a crumpled note. "No one wins this game. Ends this." A forensic tech whispered, "Guns wiped. Signs of struggle before the shot." Marcus scanned the scene. This wasn't remorse. It was clean up. "If he died to cover for them," Marcus said quietly, "I'll live long enough to expose every name he protected." Wind slipped through a cracked window, flipping the note so the words flashed once more. no one wins. Marcus knew that was wrong. Someone was still playing. Next morning, a heavy grey sky pressed over the Capitol. Outside the Capitol building, crowds swelled behind barricades, journalists, activists, citizens, faces turned toward history's next swing. Inside, the main hearing chamber buzzed with anxious energy. Every seat taken, senators, DOJ brass, staff attorneys, cameras mounted like artillery. Every screen across the country tuned in. The heavy doors opened. Silence rolled through as Marcus walked in. Black suit, straight shoulders, faint scar along his cheek catching the overhead light like an old wound. He stepped to the podium, placing a thick file and the sealed drive. The committee chair leaned forward. "Director Hale, what do you bring to this body today?" Marcus scanned the room, cameras aimed squarely at him. "I have 284 names," he began. "People detained without cause whose only crime was the color of their skin. I also have proof these weren't accidents, but policy," he said. Gasps fluttered. He opened the folder. Photos and redacted reports appeared on the towering screens behind him. Bruised faces, shredded clothing. Arrest forms stamped "Special Objective." A senator rose, voice trembling. "Are you asserting under oath these orders came from senior officials? Do you have authorization trails?" I do," Marcus replied. "But the man who signed them is dead. Found in his office with a wiped gun and no struggle. An execution, not a suicide." He lifted the drive. "This contains the chain. Targets, internal messages, foreign accounts, shell corporations, all time-stamped, all traceable." A technician connected it to the main display. Data cascaded across the screen. Transaction logs, flow charts, agency codes. Some committee members leaned so far forward their chairs creaked. Others shrank back, suddenly intent on their notes. A younger senator asked, "If this is accurate, large parts of law enforcement will have to be dismantled. Are you ready to bear that responsibility?" "Yes," Marcus answered. "Because if the system's foundation is injustice, it has to fall before anything honest can stand." He rested his hand on the folder. "I once believed justice was a wall, solid, unchanging," he said. "I was wrong. Justice is a fire. Without truth, it goes out. When it's corrupted, it has to burn through lies to be reborn." The chamber shuddered with emotion. Some clapped, others shouted objections. The space turned into a battlefield of ideals. A reporter called, "Director Hale, do you fear for your life now?" Marcus looked straight into the lens. "If justice costs me my life, I'll pay it. I'm not running." Outside, hashtags trended worldwide. Survivors and families watched from living rooms and sidewalks, hearing their pain echoed from a marble hall that had once ignored them. After hours, the gavel fell. As Marcus descended from the podium, applause and stunned silence collided. He walked the hallway like a man stepping past the point of no return. The Capitol doors opened on a storm of voices. Rain-scented wind whipped through banners. "Justice for all. Reform now." Reporters lunged forward. "How does this end?" one shouted. Marcus kept walking. "It doesn't," he said. "Justice just took its first full breath." Flashes popped like lightning. An engine roared nearby. A black SUV smashed through barricades, tires shrieking. "Down!" someone screamed. Marcus turned as a blinding explosion ripped across the square, heat punching the air from his lungs. Fire rolled outward. People were thrown like rag dolls. Cameras hit stone but kept recording. A warped emblem from the blown SUV skidded at his feet, its charred logo still barely readable. Reform Initiative. Marcus coughed, forcing himself upright, eyes locking on the flames. Puddles burned. Sirens wailed. The attack wasn't just retaliation. It was a declaration. Truth had spoken. Power had answered with fire. Night settled over the Washington suburbs. After the hearing and bombing, Marcus drove home in numb silence. Radio commentators calling him a symbol of courage he barely recognized. His house came into view, a modest 2-story silhouette. The front door sat slightly ajar, a thin wedge of hallway light spilling into darkness. His pulse spiked. Years in the field taught him that detail was no accident. He stepped out carefully. Insects in the yard went quiet. Only the wind whispered through branches. The hallway light flickered, casting a warped shadow of his figure across the wall. "Marilyn? Kids?" he called. No answer, only a faint metallic click from deeper inside. Instinct took over. Marcus froze, inhaled slowly, then pulled out his phone, switching to thermal scan. A cool blue map of the ground floor glowed on screen. No warm bodies within range. But under his feet, a line of tiny red signatures formed a path, from the door straight to the center of the room. "You've got to be kidding," he whispered, sweat beading. He lifted the rug carefully, revealing copper filaments feeding pressure sensors wrapped in carbon, military-grade booby traps. Someone had wired his home like a battlefield and vanished. Family photos smiled down from the walls, now just ghosts from before the war came inside. The intercom crackled. A distorted voice filled every speaker. "You think you've won, Director Hale?" Neutral, neither male nor female. Marcus steadied his breathing. "Who are you?" "We're the ones you never dared investigate," the voice replied, now shifting from room to room. "We don't need you dead. We need you quiet. Erase the FBI main server if you want your family back," it said. Outside, a sniper's scope winked in the dark. Marcus gripped his pistol, knowing the war had finally come home, and from here on, justice would either rise fighting or drown in permanent shadow. Lesson 1. Power without accountability is always dangerous. For those of you who have lived through the long arc of American history, from Jim Crow signs to civil rights marches to body cam headlines, the story of Director Marcus Hale may feel painfully familiar. You know what it means when a man in a uniform says, "I am the warrant." That isn't law, that's raw power. On a quiet, well-kept street, 3 officers tried to turn a respected black man into a statistic, with a few bags of white powder and a falsified report. Many of you have seen versions of this before. Neighbors stopped for fitting a description, young men roughed up and then charged with resisting. Whole neighborhoods treated like enemy territory. What shocks the younger generation no longer surprises you, but it still hurts. Hale's beating, his blood on the pavement, and the casual cruelty of Riker and Brent echo a hard truth older Americans understand in their bones. When power stops answering to anyone, it always turns against the people it's supposed to protect, especially the most vulnerable. That is why oversight, cameras, written policies, and independent review boards are not anti-police. They are pro-justice, and they protect honest officers as much as citizens. Some of you remember when there were no cameras, no phones to record, no independent hotlines to call. A man's word against an officer's usually died in a back-office drawer. Watching Hale quietly reset his dash cam, upload evidence to a secure cloud, and let the truth speak for itself can feel like a small kind of redemption for all the times there was no proof. The tools are new, but the lesson is old. Power must be watched, questioned, and held to account, or it becomes the very thing our Constitution was written to restrain. Lesson 2. One voice can light a fire, but many voices keep it burning. If you came of age in the 1950s and 60s, you remember when everyday people, pastors, teachers, factory workers, veterans, stood shoulder to shoulder and forced this country to face its own reflection. Marcus Hale is one man, but he is part of a long line of ordinary and extraordinary people who refused to look away. He used every tool he had, hidden cameras, secure drives, and old-fashioned courage. Yet his fight was never truly solo. The ambulance that rushed him from that bloody sidewalk, the staff who cracked the drive, the agents who risked their careers to follow money trails, even a broken officer like Riker who finally chose to tell the truth. Each of them became a strand in a rope strong enough to pull corruption into the light. Older Americans know this pattern well. You have watched church basements fill with volunteers, union halls buzz with strategy, and family tables turn into planning rooms. The lesson here is as old as the Republic. A single brave soul can spark change, but it takes a community of people willing to speak, listen, and stand together to keep that flame alive when the system pushes back. Today, that community may meet partly online, sharing videos, forwarding articles, joining virtual town halls. But the heart of it is the same as it was when flyers were run off on mimeograph machines. People talk, compare stories, and refuse to let anyone suffer in the dark. Hale's voice carries, but it echoes farther because ordinary people decide his pain matters to them, too. Lesson 3. Justice is not a moment on television, it is a lifelong assignment. Many of you remember big moments: the March on Washington, the signing of the Civil Rights Act, a president resigning, a wall falling overseas. They felt like endings, but life taught you they were really beginnings. Marcus Hale's testimony before Congress, with screens flashing numbers and names, looks like a climax in a movie. The bomb that explodes outside the Capitol feels like the final act. But for those of us with gray hair and lined hands, we know better. Real justice is not a single hearing, a single headline, or even a single hero. It is the quiet, grinding work that continues after the cameras shut off and the crowds go home. It is rebuilding trust block by block after years of fear. It is rewriting policies, retraining officers, rebuilding data systems so they cannot be edited in the dark. It is comforting families whose loved ones were lost to stats instead of justice. Older Americans understand that each generation inherits both progress and unfinished business. Hale uploads the truth, but someone else, maybe your grandchildren, will decide what to do with it tomorrow. In that sense, justice is less like a speech and more like a relay race, with each of us carrying the baton as far as we can before we hand it off. Like any long race, there are stretches when you are tired, discouraged, even tempted to sit down on the curb and let someone else run. But Hale's story suggests something different. That your experience, your memory of what this country has already survived, is still needed. Conclusion: what we leave behind. For those 65 and older, Marcus Hale's battle is not just another thriller. It is a mirror held up to the country you have watched rise, stumble, and rise again. You also know what it means to keep fighting anyway, for your children, your grandkids, and the neighbors who will live with the consequences of what we do now. The planted drugs, the falsified reports, the hidden money, even the bomb in the square. All of it asks the same question. Will we accept a comfortable lie or endure the hard work of telling the truth? And the lesson Hale's story presses on all of us is simple. As long as we are alive, we still have a say. We can still vote, speak, write, march, and demand better. Justice may be bruised and bleeding on the pavement today, but with enough hands lifting together, it can still stand back up. Our grandchildren will either inherit a country where truth is for sale, or one where people remember that even in our 70s and 80s, we chose to stand on the side of justice. Friends. After walking through Marcus Hale's ordeal, the planted drugs, the brutal beating, the bomb outside the Capitol, I'd really like to hear from you. In your lifetime, have you seen moments when ordinary people stood up and forced the system to change, even a little? Do you believe exposing the truth from inside the system, like Hale did, is enough? Or do we need something deeper to fix what's broken? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Tap like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can keep learning, remembering, and fighting for real justice together.